Shouts out to all the single parents out there. This one's for you. I fully believe that if you are a single parent, you are the CEO, the CFO, the COO, you are the on-site psychologist, you are the head chef, you are the executive director, you are all that and so much more. Let's get into this video, which is all about how I became a single parent. My name is Corey Osuna, founder of the Single Parent Hustler Club. So let's go back. I'm from a small town in Ohio. It's called Youngstown, and I am in the middle of my family of origin. So I have an older sibling and a younger sibling. I grew up with two parents who were very, very hardworking, and very early on they also had stress. They also had differences of lifestyles, differences of opinion, and they became divorced. So my dad did not live with us most of the time as a young person, and I spent most of my time living with my mom up until high school. Let's talk about adulthood and how I actually became a single parent. So when I was about 23, 24-ish, I met a man on an airplane, not a good sign, and we started corresponding long distance. He lived in Ohio, I lived in California at the time, even though I'm from Ohio, and literally we started dating long distance. I had no dating experience prior. I didn't even know who I was at the time, so I didn't know what to expect. I had no standards, and that's something that I definitely would love to have done differently. But since I can't go back and change the past, I certainly would encourage anyone who has a young girl that they're raising to teach them about the standards in terms of how they should be treated in a relationship. But then, of course, you know, that means that you have emotional intelligence as the parents to be able to do that. And sometimes you're just too stressed out, just trying to survive. You don't even have time to think about that. But nonetheless, I was really always a lover of education. And so I pretty much thought if I follow the rules, quote unquote, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but if you follow the rules, like do well in school, go to college, get a degree, meet a nice young man, get married, everything will be fine, you'll live happily ever after. I pretty much believe that. Honey, that was not the case. So because this man was a long distance dating situation, I didn't even have the understanding, the worldliness, the ability to even think, oh, let me check him out. So I just took everything that he said literally as truth. And once we got to about a year of long distance dating, then he proposed. And he was super romantic, sending flowers, cards, gifts, long distance. He was coming to visit, all kinds of things. And so I just thought, hey, this is great. And you know what? I really thought, I'm a nice person, so this is a great thing. This should be happening to me. This is exactly what should be happening. No, that's not what should be happening. What actually should be happening is you should be meeting face to face, and you should be able to have a conversation back and forth so that you understand each other and you can see each other's differences, strengths, weaknesses, etc. You can't really do that as well, in my opinion, from a long distance situation. So the next step in our relationship was to get engaged. Of course, he bought a ring. It was all very, very whirlwind. That's a good way to say it. And once he proposed, it was just going to be a matter of a couple of months. I was going to move back to Ohio with him from California, and we were just going to be married. So we did that. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys know, especially those of you who grew up with girlfriends, because I didn't grow up that way. You know all the red flags. And so here's where all of the cracks start showing in the armor. So literally, I start to see his temper. And it turns out that it starts off very, very small. He's supposedly a godly man. He supposedly went to church and had a degree in, I want to say theology or something like that. None of that was true. I found out afterward. But I was a person who was just super, super naive and believed everything. And so one of the big red flags was we were out somewhere and someone who was a server made a mistake. And he went off. And I was like, whoa, like it was like a whole different person. So that was the beginning. Not long after that, he started calling me names, got verbal abuse, and then it started to increase. And eventually I felt like he was about to try and hit me. And I cannot even tell the heat that I felt in my body in that moment when I realized, oh, this man is about to try and actually like put his hands on me. It was like a whole different side of me came out. So he literally became so aggressive that I moved out, and I literally was like, no, we are not going to ever be together again unless you have counseling, you have some major issues, and there's not going to be any way that it's going to go down where I'm going to be hit. That's just not going to happen. That's not who I am. So he didn't take it seriously, and he was a corrections officer. Not surprising, a lot of times those guys have issues with violence and excessive force. He had been written up for that. And so it happened one day, and he was really about to hit me. And I literally, a switch went off in my head. I literally said to him, okay, here we go. If you make the mistake of hitting me, make sure that I die. Like, I cannot get up. Because if I get up after you hit me, I will go up and get your gun and kill you with your own gun. I actually said that. And I was like, what? Who is this person? And so he was scared of me, like literally, and that's a thing. People like that who are bullies, they're actually such cowards. And it was the first time that I realized that he was actually scared of me, but it was also one of the first times that I really stood up for myself. And I was absolutely serious because my dad trained me right. He said, look, if you're ever in a situation and you need a gun, never pull it out just for a threat. Pull it out and shoot to kill. So he taught me that when I was like 7. So literally that was always in the back of my mind. So because I realized that he was afraid and he had all these issues, I was much more courageous. And so then I just moved out. Luckily, I was so blessed. I had a family member. They let me live there for free while I kind of figured out what I was going to do. I ended up quitting my job because I couldn't go back and forth in safety in my mind. I felt like he would show up there and then it would be a big issue and I would not be safe. And so then my uncle, God bless him, he's such a blessing in my heart, in my life. He came, picked me up, drove me to the airport, called my mother and said, make sure she never goes back to him. And that was literally the last time that I saw that man who was my husband. So that was my first husband. Now here's the second part of the story. 10 years go by, and in the meantime I was doing what I do. I'm a fashion designer. I teach fashion design, so I was working in the industry. I was teaching people different things about the fashion industry, and I started going to this particular church, and because I could speak Spanish, I learned how to speak Spanish just living in Los Angeles. I ended up at a church that was a Spanish language church so that I could learn more and get more in depth. And I was a worship leader. I'm a musician. I sing, I play, all that stuff. Not very well anymore because I stopped playing, but we'll talk about that. And so what ended up happening was I met a man. This man was a genius. So now this is 10 years since that first situation. By now I'm like 34-ish, 33-ish. So I meet this man and he is so, I mean, like when I say talented, beyond belief. So this man plays the guitar, is a genius. Somebody introduces us and is like, hey, you guys should work together. We start working together. We become great friends. Of course, because so much time had passed by since that last relationship, I thought, oh, I'm ready to move forward and have a serious relationship. No, I wasn't. And the reason I wasn't is because I actually didn't do the work on self-esteem and some of the things that happen to young women as far as people being attracted to them because they are naive. I hadn't done that work. I didn't even still really understand where I was naive, and I didn't really have tons of relationships in between there. Actually, I think I might only have dated maybe 1 or 2 people in between that 10-year span. So I was really a super creative person. I'd spend most of my time working, sewing, painting, sketching, and teaching people how to do that stuff. And I hadn't done the work that I didn't even realize at the time that I needed to have done in order to be ready. So this man ends up being a genius in music, and we worked together so well that we naturally fell in love. So now this man and I are in love, we are great friends, and we're working in ministry. What could be better, I thought. But I hadn't done the research once again. And I don't mean research where you're digging around for information about someone. I just mean paying attention to who the whole person is outside of one specific area. So we worked in one specific area together, and that was making music. If I were paying attention, there were signs because I was actually the worship leader in charge. The church actually paid me, and I was hiring people to come on board, and I was training people to come on board. And he was one of the people that I said, oh no, we absolutely need him. He's special. His music is magic. We have to have him. And they resisted for a while because they thought he wasn't emotionally stable and he was not spiritually stable. And I convinced them that, hey, if we say we are a place where anyone can come, they should all be able to come, and not that everybody's ready for leadership, but at least they should be able to have the opportunity to meet with someone and get ready to serve. And so that's what they did, and we continued to make our music together. But it wasn't easy. Like, I would notice there was this resistance that I would feel from him, just little bitty things. Like, I would say, as the vocalist, hey, let's do this song, let's say in the key of C. And he would say, oh, well, the song sounds better in the key of E. Like, things like that. Even though it seems like a little thing, actually, when you're performing together as a band, you kind of need to do the song in the key that the vocalist is able to perform it best in. And then everybody else falls in line around wherever, or just switch the vocalist out, which I was totally open to. So it was just little things like that that started to have a pushback, but I really was so in love with our process of making music together and the fact that people received it so well. I mean, like, I would go into church and hear our songs that we created being played. It was such a wonderful thing to be able to experience something that you create, because I had created clothing all that time, or paintings or whatever, something similar, but never music. And so to see the music come to life was just such a joy for me. But that's not the same as this being a great fit for me. And so that's one thing that I did not understand back then. So we move forward. We literally end up getting married. But there was no proposal. There was no engagement. Did you notice that? So here's what happened. Literally, somebody said to him, oh, you should marry her. And that's kind of how the bug got in his brain, in my opinion. This is all my side of it. Of course, there's a whole nother side that he would tell, and I don't know what that is. But from my side of it, that was how that bug kind of got in his brain. And he said to me, yeah, eventually we should get married. So I just was like over the moon at the process of us creating music together. And he was a cool dude too. And so I didn't even think twice about, oh, wait, has he proposed? Did he buy me a ring? Is he wooing me? And none of that was actually happening. We were just showing up and performing and enjoying the music part of it, but we really didn't have a relationship behind the scenes that was I would say flourishing and thriving, and the way that a relationship should be apart from work, because for us that actually was our work, creating the music. So what ended up happening was I said yes when he said, hey, we should get married, but it wasn't a proposal. And then close to the date that we sat to get married, it dawned on me. And I said, wait, hey, you know what? You didn't even propose to me yet, actually. What's happening here? And he started to get a little bit more pushback, like intensely rebelling against my saying that. So that's another flag, right? I didn't understand at all that even though he was a genius in music, that does not mean that he's a genius in life. And so with that pushback, we started having fights and arguments, not fights in terms of fist fighting, but arguments back and forth, and bigger disagreements about how things should be happening in the relationship, because I was like, hey, wait, isn't this supposed to happen? Isn't that supposed to happen? And for him, that just wasn't a part of his world at all. And so he was looking at me like, what are you asking me, and why are you asking me? And so it never actually happened. There was no official proposal until there was sort of a proposal. I had a conversation with my mom and he overheard it. And I was saying that he hasn't actually proposed. And because he heard it, I think he maybe felt bad. So then I bought myself a ring, and then he got down on one knee and gave it to me. So this is how it went down. I had some earrings that were diamond, and some person gave them to me a long time ago, and I never really wore studs. You can see I'm a hoops kind of gal. And then I had a few other items, and so I took them all to this jeweler and purchased other diamonds to go with it and had a ring designed for myself. This is me in a jeweler, in their space, telling them what I would like, showing them my ideas, showing them my jewelry. So it really had nothing to do with him. So in other words, I wasn't even savvy enough, even after that whole first situation 10 years before, I still hadn't understood and done the growing up emotionally, and I didn't even know that I needed to do that. I hadn't understood what was missing in order for me to actually be ready to be married, or to be in at least a healthy relationship. So the ring was done, and because my mom had overheard, in my opinion, the conversation that he hadn't actually proposed, he got down on one knee in her house, and just kind of spur of the moment, a couple of weeks before we were going to get married, and then he proposed to me, and she was delighted. My mom was like, oh, he's proposing. So she was super excited, but in the back of my mind and deep in my heart, I was like, but wait, I mean, yeah, he is getting down on one knee, but actually, this is not the way it's supposed to go. And I didn't even have the words to articulate. So I felt weird about it, and I felt like something was wrong, but I didn't even really understand that I should say something. I didn't even understand that that's my instinct. I didn't even understand that's God's way of talking to you. When you have that little feeling or that intuition, you should follow it. So I didn't pursue it. And then we got into premarital counseling. Maybe that was like the last week or two before we actually were set to get married. Okay, so I did tell you that this was a Spanish-speaking church, and of course I wanted to learn more about the culture. I already could speak the language, but I wanted to learn it at another level. And I really enjoyed the music. That was the most beautiful worship music I've ever heard. But what ended up happening was, in counseling, we started talking about some of our issues, and the pastor of the church said to me literally about an issue with the man I was going to marry and his mom. His mom didn't like me because I'm black, and he was not black. Excuse me, he was Mexican American. So the pastor said, as a way to console me and to make me feel better, oh, don't worry, you don't even look black. And I almost fell out of my chair. I could not believe what I was hearing. I was like, wait, what? I've been here all this time, and I had some weird feelings before, but again, I didn't follow that because I didn't realize that I'm supposed to speak up. I'm supposed to have an opinion. I had been told the opposite, and I fell for it. So literally, I realized at that moment, this man is racist, and he doesn't even understand that he just insulted me and said basically being black is a bad thing and looking black is a bad thing, and you're okay because you don't really look black. And yes, I am mixed race with a lot of things, Native American, Brazilian, but most of it is Africa. Yes, some Eastern European, yes, some Indian, both types. But again, most of it is Kenya and Nigeria in my blood. So I am a black person. And I love the fact that God created me. I'm also multi-cultural and multi-ethnic, but I love the fact that I am a black woman. And I just couldn't believe that this was actually happening, that this person who I've been working under as a pastor for all these years literally said to me, don't worry, you don't look black. It's all good. It'll be fine. Mom will come around. So we did still get married with all these red flags, and that's totally on me. And many, 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 many bad things happened. That's what we're going to talk about next. Thanks so much for watching this video about how I became a single parent. That was only part 1. Stick around for part 2. Bye for now.